Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Adobe Live here on Behance. We've got a really good week this week, packed, jam-packed full of things, and we're so happy that Patricia is here today. Welcome, Patricia.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, hi, Maddy. Hello, everyone.
It's so good to have you here, and we're excited because it's not only just one day that we have Patricia here for our XD Masterclass, but we're getting out the jazz hands because we are here for 3 days. So we have day 1 today. Of course, we're going to continue tomorrow with day 2, and really exciting things for day 3 actually on Thursday. So we've got definitely some information that we'll give you as we go along, but we've got some prizes to give out as well. So this is a really good session. And it's great to see so many familiar faces back in the chat. Hello already to Kirsty. I can see lots of people in there. David, Stuart, and Angus as well. So lots of people here to see. And really excited to jump into XD. You know, what have we got in store today, Patricia?
So this will be super exciting for the next 3 days because I prepared really cool things for you. This is a super beginner Adobe XD Masterclass. So we will start really from scratch. And today will be mostly about getting to know the tools, talking about user experience design, what is UX, UI, how to integrate research. And yeah, tomorrow, because we have actually 3 days. Tomorrow is more about design and wireframes, how to design screens, and the last day will be about animations and how to create an interactive prototype, which you can test with users.
Perfect. And do you know, I was just saying before we went live, Patricia, I was saying, you know, that my experience with XD is really minimal. So I'm really looking forward to picking up some tips from you along the way this week.
You will definitely will, because we will start from the very beginning. Like today will be mostly about like getting to know the tools and talking about like the basics of UX.
Fab. Well, the prize that we've got to give away on Thursday is a year's CC subscription. So this is really exciting. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more throughout the live session today and a little bit more on Thursday as well. But where should we get started? I mean, your main role, Patricia, is an innovation designer, and you cover so many different things, right, in your career and the projects that you work across. How do you get started?
So I think most people probably don't know me yet, so I would do like a super quick introduction for everyone who's a little bit like curious what I'm doing. So I am happy to share my screen with you and like guide you around a little bit. So yeah, like I already said, I'm an innovation designer, so UX UI designer for everything which involves innovation, mostly augmented reality and virtual reality, but my background is user experience design, and I'm still doing like app and web designs as a freelance designer. I'm based in Berlin. And besides all the work and like the client projects I'm doing, I'm spending a lot of time on like social networks, sharing information, writing articles, doing live streams on Instagram. And maybe I can show that really quick. And I'm also sharing a lot of information around user experience design on Instagram and Twitter. So if you are listening and if you're interested in user experience design, maybe you're still working in another area, but you want to switch to UX, feel free to check out my Instagram. I'm sharing a lot of useful information and doing also live streams on Instagram. So yeah, just check that out. And if you're interested about, you know, what I am working on, what I'm doing, you can check out my Behance page. I think it's actually linked here in the stream, so you can just click on my name and then you get to this page where you can see different projects I worked on for the last 2 or 3 years. Most of them are like, have a really big focus on research. This, for example, was one where I was looking a little bit into the future of work. So I collaborated with the Adobe XD team because they released a really cool plugin with which you can create like VR prototypes, which was really, really fun. And generally, most of the things I am working on are focusing on the future and how things will change in the next, I would say, like 10 to 15 years. Always starting with research, looking for problems, and then coming up with solutions and new ideas by integrating like voice interaction, smart assistants, and augmented reality. So really like to think about like the future of things.
Nice. And if you have any questions for Patricia today, everybody, we're chatting in Behance. So if you want to, as I said, ask any questions, go to behance.net/Adobe Live or /live. And we won't be chatting in YouTube. So all of the chat will be during the live session in Behance and afterwards in Discord.
Yeah. By the way, just saw in the chat, that's actually not my house. I'm not at home. I'm in my office. Just to clarify that.
It looks very big.
Yeah, it's really big. I would, it would be great if this would be my house, but no, it's my office space. So, yeah, if you have any questions during the stream or even afterwards, you can always reach out to me. Of course, right in the chat, but you can also, text me on Instagram or Twitter or Medium. I'm, on all the social networks you can think about and sharing a lot of the learnings I'm having. And so I think that's it for the introduction, I would say. Without losing too much time, let's get started with our Adobe XD Masterclass. I prepared actually some really cool things for you. So the file you're seeing in front of you is something, what I prepared for you. So for everyone who really wants to get into Adobe XD and wants to learn that, so you can download this file for free. I uploaded it in a Google Drive. You probably get the link in the chat, I think. So you can just download the file. And what you can see here is everything we are going to do for the next 3 days. Yeah, what you can see what we will do in the next 3 days. Here's a little agenda. So this might be interesting for you to get an overview because we will spend the next 3 days together. So today will be mostly about the concept part, the research. I'm going to talk a little bit about user experience design in general, what it is, what's important to understand, what are first steps. Tomorrow will be about design, so how to actually design screens, how to build a design library, and how to design like all the things you need on an interface, right? And the last day will be about prototyping, so really designing interactions so that you are able to prototype them and test that with real users, so you're able to click the buttons and things are actually moving. And we have a really cool topic for the stream. So at the moment, we have like some kind of a summer break. I think in most countries, it's, no school, no universities most of the time. So we have some kind of like a holiday season. But because of COVID, most of us are not able actually to fly or to go to other countries or to travel really far. So what we are going to do in the next 3 days is we're going to design a travel app, a digital product for local travels. So for everything which is based in the UK. So really support the local beautiful places where you can spend like a weekend or a week and, do all the traveling in your home country. And we will go through all the steps. So this is still German actually. So this is the topic. And then we have the challenge. This is our brief. This is something what you would get from a client as a user experience designer or generally as a designer, whatever kind of designer you are, those kind of briefs or the challenges you get. And our challenge is create a local travel app for example for Alexa Echo or any other device. We are going to start by figuring out the requirements. We're going to design the screens and prototype the idea. And if you want to join this task, this challenge, feel free to do that. Because the good thing is you can design everything on the site. You can design everything at home and learn that actually by doing. In the end, so after like the third day, we also have like how do you say, like a little like we are going to pick a winner. So we are going to pick a winning design for a travel app, and you also get something nice from Adobe. So will be cool and really worth it to join, participate, and yeah, get to know the tool in this way. My recommendation is, if you want to join, get some paper sheets or whatever kind of paper you have, get a pen, and if you have, also some Post-its. That's really helpful to gather some ideas, to get some insights, and to get started, I would say. So I hope you have that prepared. If not a problem at all. Just make sure that you download Adobe XD so you can get started with me, and we can do that side by side, kind of.
Wow. There were some people in the chat asking, can we do this in Illustrator or can we do this through other apps? And this is all XD. This is all about getting the experience and using XD. So it has to be an XD, everyone.
I mean, that's actually a great question, I would say, because generally all the design things we are doing here, of course, you could do that in other tools. But there is a reason why professional designers, if they want to focus on interface design, are using Adobe XD or other software. And you will see on the way, especially tomorrow, why. Because you already see, when you see the interface here, it's like so simple and easy to understand that even if you are based in Illustrator or Photoshop, you will learn the tool in just a few hours. Which is for me still fascinating, right? Because I spent like hours and hours and hours learning Photoshop, for example, because it's like so complex. There's so many features. With Adobe XD, it's different. If you learn one tool, whatever kind of tool it is, you won't have problem switching to Adobe XD. I can promise you that. And you have some really cool features, especially everything around the prototyping and the share area, which really makes the difference. And you can't do that in Illustrator or Photoshop. So switch to Adobe XD, download that, and get started. So let's have a really, really quick look at the human-centered design process. We can see that here. So in user experience design, everything happens actually around the user. So the user is really in the center, and everything happens by integrating the user, kind of. We're designing digital products, so could be apps or could be websites, but the general idea behind user-centered design is that you focus very much on the human being's needs. So you start with empathy. So you start with user research, where you think about what does the user really need. And this is what we are going to do now as well. We're going to start from the very beginning and think about what does a user need. We're not going to think about solutions and ideas. We're going to start with the problems and getting to know the user. So who's actually going to use our travel app? What kind of requirements do we need? What kind of information do we need? And what are actually pain points from users who are traveling at the moment? Imagine family with kids. How are they spending their weekend? What kind of problems they might have? And in the next stages, it goes more and more into depth and a little bit more into detail as well. So after that, we're going to focus on the ideas. So we are really coming up with ideas, with a concept. How could the app look like? How could like a user flow actually look like? And then we're going to design the screens with the ideas we got from the research and the design phase, and prototype everything until we can test it. So my recommendation is always to start with user research. And I think this is very different than like other design disciplines, I would say, because my background is actually graphic design. So I studied graphic design in like university, and after the studies, I decided to switch to user experience design. And I still, I worked in like graphic design as well, and I'm seeing so many differences now. I'm thinking back about like my time as a graphic designer and now being a UX designer, because the interesting thing with UX is that you do a lot of research around the user. So you start very much with like the basics. You want to understand what are the problems, what are the right requirements. You're not really doing that in graphic design, although you are doing research to come up with a good design. But most of the time, at least like I have never done that, you don't do research with users where you do testing with, how should a book look like, or a layout, or a magazine. I have never done that. Could be that some people are doing that, but I have never done that. But with UX, it's like totally normal that you do that. So how would you actually get started when you have a challenge, when you have a brief, and you want to design something? So for my recommendation is to start with like a research method that really helps you to understand the behavior of people, the research, like the reasons, and everything which involves like emotion and behavior. So what I did was, before the session, I conducted interviews. So I invited people and asked them several questions to understand how they travel. What are their main problems? What are the pain points? What are challenges? And what could we actually provide in this app to help them, to support them? Because what's always interesting is people are not stupid, they can Google. So all the information are somewhere, but there are always information missing. So there's not everything perfect laid out. There are a lot of problems which are like people, which are stressful for people. So it's important for us to see those problems, understand the user, what do they really need, what could we provide them, and help them to come up with like a good product, which are, which really helps people, and people want to pay for that and use that in the end, right? And yeah.
And there's a question from Catherine in the chat that says, does UX design require A/B testing as part of the research?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that. So A/B testing is a really great method, but like you already said, for testing. So if you see here if you see this like human-centered design circle, we are starting with empathy. So very much about like understanding. We could also do like a market analysis. We could do interviews. We could do surveys. And as soon as we have a design or two versions of a design, we can do A/B testing. Exactly. We can definitely do that. But for that, it requires to have at least two options, right? We need to have option A and option B. And A/B testing is a really great way to see what works better, right? So A/B testing is a really great way. And for example, like all the big companies, it's like Facebook or Google, they're already doing that with us as users, but we don't really know that, right? I don't know if you have seen that, but like from some people's Instagram or Facebook looks slightly different. So they're placing buttons on other places and they're doing the testing with us without asking. Which is funny. I have never actually noticed that, but someone told me that, and I thought it's fascinating because by doing that, they are able to test with like a huge amount of people. And for A/B testing, it's really important to have like a really big amount of like users who are using that. And because it's definitely
Sorry, Patricia. And if you could define A/B testing in one sentence, how would you describe A/B testing?
So you have two options and test both with different user groups and see what works better. This is, I think, like 2 sentences. But the goal is, I mean, it could work like that you have a start screen, one with like a really big search bar in the middle, and the other one with like a tiny search bar on the side, but with options. With options where you can say like, travel to the beach, travel to the mountain, travel to something else. And then you give them a goal, the user, so both groups, you would say like, imagine you would like to go to a beach close to your city, for example. And then you see what people really doing and how fast they are able to reach to the goal, which would be booking a slot at or saving a travel route to their calendar, for example. And then you see how long it takes them, how many clicks it takes them, and like where they got confused, kind of. So it's a really interesting method, and you can do that by sitting on the side and watching them, so you can also get a lot of insights about their behavior, or you could do that like completely digital with like a digital service, like a service where all the information is already tracked and analyzed for you in the end. So yeah, it's a really great method.
And how long would you spend on each step? From empathy up to ideation, like if you could give it a time, a rough, what are you talking?
So that's also a really good question, because that very much depends. So at the moment we have different methods, right? There are like so many methods in UX and so many ways to do that, because there's a huge discussion around that. Some people say, or like some experts actually say, it's okay to start with some kind of assumptions in the beginning, then come up with a prototype and test that, and that integrate the testing already with the research. So you go like super quick from the first step to the second and to the third, and then take more time in the testing and the prototyping. And there are also things like design sprint. I don't know if you have heard about that. That's a really famous method, which I think was I think Google actually came up with the idea that you could put all those 5 stages in a week. Yes. So you start at day 1 with the empathy, you do research and do all the steps, on one day kind of. And in the end, you have like one idea, one prototype, and also you did the testing and the results. And sometimes it's working out and sometimes not. But besides like all the methods, generally, it depends on the I would say like a little bit on the project. So for my recommendation, for my experience, you spend around like 1 or 2 weeks with the empathy. Then you go to the definition where you can like build the first wireframes and go through the design states. But I think what's really important to emphasize here is that although it looks very much like a waterfall, right, like one after the other, you can go back and forth on all the steps. So if you notice during the prototyping that you need to do more testing, you can always do that. And that's the reason why it's some kind of a circle. You never really finished. You always, go through all the steps, and they are all kind of connected with each other. And there are big projects, especially, imagine that you need to design like a whole website for for Audi, for example, for a car manufacturer. This takes years sometimes. You do a lot of research in the beginning, you do different methods, you come up with design library, design systems, and you always do different kind of testing and research methods in between. So this can take years, which is crazy, right? It takes a lot of time, because you really need to make sure that the result at the end kind of works. But the good thing is that a lot of things at the moment, I think like moving to a place where research is really like valued and is integrating early on in the process. And this helps a lot to speed up the whole process, right? Because you get all the insights from your users in the very beginning, and you're not designing something and then realizing at the end, oh, it's not really working. The users don't really get it, but you already implemented everything. So yeah.
Stuart mentioned in the oh, it totally is, and I was going to say, Stuart mentioned in the chat earlier on that you could use this process for so many things. And in my role, I'm in enablement, and so we do a really similar thing. What's the pain points? What are the behaviors that we're trying to change? The idea, same thing. So it's really interesting. It really is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very much about like analyzing what's there, what's out there, about the market, understanding the user, but also the business, right? So it's not only about the user, but also the business, because you need to make money at some point. So it's important to define in the beginning everything which involves business and the user, I would say.
Yeah.
And so this is what I did. I wrote down a few, like, it's still in German. I wrote down a few things during the interview, because I thought for the very beginning it's great to have interviews where you can really ask questions. And I wrote down a few pain points and also questions people are having. So some pain points were, for example, that many people don't really know about the beautiful places near their home or, the place they are living. And weekend trips, for example, are often planned and booked spontaneously, but involve a lot of organization, like how to get there. Is there, are there places where, kids also have like fun, or where they could stay? Other restaurants, are there like public restrooms? Those kind of things. So a lot of planning and organization, especially for the people with kids. This is what I experienced, that it's not so easy always to come up with weekend trips, which are great for kids especially. And also there are a lot of options out there. You need to choose off, right? If you're Googling something like weekend trip London, then there are a lot of options, so you need to choose, which is sometimes really difficult. Depends a little bit on the people, but there are recommendations, like really great. A lot of people told me actually that the trips they did came from recommendations. So a few people just recommended them where to actually get there. And so a few questions they had was especially like from the families with kids, how to find places for like family friendly places, where can they go, like hiking or outdoor camping. And another really important thing for most people were like the public transportation. So how they could actually get there, because a lot of people didn't really have a car. So I need to say that I did the research in Germany. I'm based in Berlin, so most of the people I interviewed are from Berlin. It might be a little bit different in the UK, but my recommendation is do your own research. Go outside, talk to people. You can either, of course, talk with family and friends. Of course, it might be a little bit biased when you ask them about those things, but you can also go outside, do guerrilla research, and talk to people on the street. Ask them questions, come up with good questions from the beginning, and then use all the insights for your products. So the next thing is actually what you do is, we have all the pain points and all the questions now. We are thinking about the features and everything. So what should we actually integrate in our app? So what kind of features do we have? So if this would be a live workshop session, then I would ask you, so everyone in the chat, to come up with features, with requirements, and write them down on Post-its. And then in the end, we could look like how feasible they are, what's actually possible for us to integrate in in our first design. But feel free to write some features or requirements in the chat. Maybe that's helpful for us. We can integrate that, and yeah, it's still open. So these are just things I have done before, I did before the workshop, but we can still add features and requirements, so it's not made in stone. A few features and recommendations are, what we need in this app. Could be an Amazon Echo Show, for example, the one with the screen. So imagine that Saturday morning, a family is sitting, doing the breakfast together and thinking about a weekend trip. That especially doing those things where you are kind of busy, it's really great to do that via voice. So ask Alexa, what kind of things would you recommend, but also have a screen to see the places, right? If Alexa only recommends you specific places, but you don't really see them, you are not so likely to go there, because it's kind of difficult to see how they actually look, if it's worth it to go there. But you can also design an app for your phone or for your iPad, what kind of device you prefer.
Bam. And there's a couple of recommendations for your features that have come up in the chat. And Angus made a good point to say, so please don't forget about disability or special needs section in there. And so that would be good. And I do love a comment from Tim, who says that he would like an "I'm feeling lucky" button. To maybe
what does it mean?
Maybe to randomize a holiday, a destination for you.
Like that.
Tim, maybe put some more information in the chat if that's not what you were going for. Fab.
Oh, I like that idea. Like randomize. Surprise me, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that idea. That's kind of interesting, because I know like some people who there's so little surprises in our lives at the moment, right? We know everything. Nothing really surprises us. We have planned everything. We know everything. So, and now some people actually who are doing like yearly surprise travel things, for example, where they take like always like the second flight on the board at the airport, and always go there, wherever it is. Could be like London or Maldives, Australia, whatever. I think it's like super, I know, I would be too scared to do that, but I think it's kind of funny if people are that spontaneously and are open to do that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, right.
There is a question actually that's come in that says, from Stuart, is this a good way to present your information? Like if you were going to go back to a client and you're presenting user research, would you present it in this way, or would you go maybe to gather your information through Excel into a dashboard, or how do you present all of your research?
Really good point. That's definitely a tricky question, I would say, because it always depends a little bit. But if you present your research like that, then you need to be sure that the clients have some kind of basic understanding of research and the design process, right? Because for people who are not really like believing in research generally, or don't really understand the design process, for them it's kind of difficult to just see post-its. So what we are usually doing, we present specific deliverables, for example, personas. So you have specific personas with needs and wishes and desires and example persons, kind of, which you deliver to the clients, which they can use throughout the whole design process. Or you come up with a user journey map, for example, where you show the process, from starting with their first thought about what should I do on the weekend until like going to a trip. Sometimes this process needs like several days. So what's really great for clients is to have some kind of a sheet, some kind of one deliverable where they see all the insights you have. What's really not helpful for them is depends of course on the client, right? So there are also clients who are happy to have like an Excel sheet with all the insights you have from research. But this Excel sheet is huge most of the times. It's like several pages and like a lot of information. So what's usually really great for clients, or also for team members who are not involved in the research, is to have this, you have the insights, the requirements, the features. So all the things you learned from research, kind of analyzed, you came up with requirements, like for example, with the families I talked to, they said that it's really difficult to find family-friendly places. Family-friendly means that it's safe for kids, they can play around, that there are public toilets, and there are restaurants. That's a really great feature already. You know, the requirements are that we need to integrate information about like the kind of family friendliness of places. And the feature would be some kind of a little of a filter system where you could look for family-friendly places. And for clients, it's much easier to get the information about what do they need and come up with the requirements than, you know, only the post-its.
Yeah. I think it's good to start here, you know, like Patricia, we've started right at the beginning, and from the chat, it looks like people are surprised that all of this exists, you know, this big research part, right? Because normally you just get the brief, you begin your work, and actually it is identifying those pain points and those things as well. And there is a question here, and I don't know what this is, so I'm keen to learn as well. Catherine asks, does Patricia do scamps before showing the research?
What does scamps mean?
What's scamps?
Is it an English word, which I don't know?
I've not heard of it before. Catherine, please provide some more detail. There's another question as well from Pia, who says, do you know a website where you could test your layouts for the accessibility, like red, green, or eyesight?
So I'm really glad that you asked that, because I am going to show you a really good plugin which you could download for Adobe XD and test specific accessibility features. It's called, wait, I can show you already because here are the plugins right there. I will show you everything on I think tomorrow when we are going to do the design part. So not going to talk too much already about that. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, my recommendation is download the plugin and test that already before you realize that it's like not really accessible. Sure. But good point. Really good point.
And there's more information about Scamp. Apparently Scamp is a first rough or mock-up, usually used in artwork in terms of Scamp up a design during the design brief. Do you do that?
Interesting. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so it's coming from another design discipline, right? Okay, again, something learned. Haven't really heard about that. So what we usually do is we start with sketches. So we would sit together in the team, also with the stakeholders, and do sketches where we draw things, a wireframe, what kind of features we need. I think it's a little bit different than the scams. I'm not sure if I understood it like 100%, but I think what's different here is most of the times that it's not that, like the solution is not defined yet. So, you know, most of the times, okay, I need like a digital product, but you don't know at that point, you have assumptions, but you don't know how this will look like because you don't know, you haven't done any research, you haven't done talked to the stakeholders, you haven't like analyzed the business insights, etc. So I think it's a little bit different than in graphic design, for example, where you already know what the outcome is and how it might look like at some point. I hope I understood that right.
Yeah, that sounds it. I think it was just really showing, at the beginning, that first initial meeting, they give you their need, and then you're just sketching, say, okay, this is what we could kind of do, show them in that way. It's funny though, because in a way, if I was looking at this as a creative, I would think that a company, to work out that they wanted to spend budget on this in the first place, that they would do research to target their audience, and that they would provide that in a brief so that I knew what I was building. I wouldn't be thinking that I would do the research. And this is where I'm surprised.
Interesting. So it depends a little bit. There are also companies, right? There are so many digital products, right? Like so many. And sometimes companies already did research. Sometimes they already did that. And they can hand you over everything they have. And you can go through all the insights and look, do I have everything I need, or do I need to do my research? And I think what's also important to say is there are companies, that are not doing research. I worked in teams where research were not included, but I need to say that at some point we got problems. So I'm always supporting designers who are like fighting for research and being able to convince stakeholders or team members to integrate that in the very beginning, because it will save you so much time and money. I remember that like from the projects we haven't done research because there was like no budget or no time or whatever. In the end, like not true, because we spent so much time and budget after we realized that things are not working out. So you as a designer need to fight for that sometimes, and it will be so much like less stressful and so much more fun doing that. And there are a lot of ways to do that, like cheap and easy and without spending too much time and budget. That's, I think, really important.
Yeah,
to know.
Definitely. And there's one last question, which is that if you don't have friends and family to ask for your research, are there places that you can go to get wider research and audiences and the type of age groups, and how do you find?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So asking family and friends is something you can do that's like super cheap. You don't have any problems with that. You just need to make sure that they belong in your target group, right? So if you are designing, like a cooking app for elderly people and you are asking your roommates, then probably that's not the right choice. So you need to define your target audience first and focus on them. So if they are not, if you don't know people who are doing that, I mean, as a student, you can look online. You can use your social networks. Start with a survey. Look for people and then do interviews. You can post in different social groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and look for specific people. So, but I think what's important to say is if you're working for a client, most of the times you don't ask friends or family at all for different reasons. First, you sign an NDA, so you can't really show anything to anyone because it's top secret. And second of all is that most of the times they don't really belong in your target audience. So you have like a very specific target audience, for example, like young mothers with children or people who are cooking twice a day with like a specific devices or those kind of things. So it doesn't really make sense to, look in your environment or look for, all the people in your area. But you need to do that a little bit more, like I would say, like professionally. But if you are starting as a designer, if you're just switching to UX and if you're interested in research, I would start with my colleagues or with family and friends, because that also helps you to learn how to frame questions, how to come up with questions, how to guide an interview, and it's like the cheapest way you can do. So there are also two other options. First is paying an agency for the recruitment. I did that actually several times when I worked with the healthcare, in the healthcare sector, because then we need like very specific people with different illnesses, for example. So we actually recruited them and paid a lot of money to get them, but in the end it was worth it because we got a lot of really great insights. And another option is always to do like a real research. For example, if you are designing a shopping app for a shopping center or in a supermarket or something like that, you could go into a supermarket and look for people there and ask them questions. I think it's another topic how you do those interviews, but this is also an option because you usually, of course, you can like pay them like 10, 12, 10 or $20 like Amazon vouchers or things like that. But most of the times you don't need that. Like I have done that like so much and got so many insights from that.
Yeah, I think it's good to discuss though, because that's something that you should add to the statement of work, you know, when you're starting and you're budgeting. And lastly, from the chat, by the looks of it, we should definitely add a feature to your app which talks about finding the best chips, because there's lots of debate going on in there about cheese and gravy on chips, garlic, paprika, tomato. You guys. And apparently West Midlands are doing the best chips in the UK. So as a feature, best chips, I think.
Oh, I love that. That's so nice. Of course, I haven't thought about that, but I like that. Amazing. Food is so important, right? Some people are just traveling somewhere for food.
I know.
Amazing.
What about you though, Patricia? Are you cheesy chips, mushy peas? How do you flavour your
So, with cheese sounds nice, actually. It sounds really good. With cheese sounds good.
I'm with you.
But yeah, in Berlin we don't really have a lot of like chips. Like, not that many actually. Yeah, I need to come to the UK, I think. Okay, so back to topic. Because the next thing what we are going to do is we're going to look a little bit on the interface, because we will start with wireframes. We have the last 10 minutes or so to get started from the very beginning. So you have this file here with all the information, but we're going to create a new one where we are going to design wireframes and the designs. So what are wireframes? Wireframes are actually the screen design kind of without the design. So it only integrates the functions, the features, and all the things which are on the screen without any design elements. So without color or typography. So it's very much focused on the functionalities. So how does that work? If you are opening Adobe XD, you are going to see something like that, right? Here you have the different options. Here are cloud documents, so you can save your documents in the cloud and share that with your team members, for example. So here you have that. And here you have all the recent designs. Usually there are more, but I just switched it to English. That's the reason why you're only seeing the designs for the masterclass here. But usually you would see here much more. If you want to get started, you can either choose one of those designs here and for Instagram story, all the things you're needing if you don't want to design something, or start with like a phone, Google Pixel, iPhone, so the size you're going to design for. We are going to design an iPad, exactly. So I'm going to click on that. And then it opens automatically the design, like the artboard, and a new file. This thing here is called artboard. I guess many of you already know that from Photoshop or Illustrator. And if you click, see, I have like so many shortcuts here. If you click on A, you get this little thing, and you can either draw your own artboard, like in Illustrator, or you can choose one of the sizes on their site. This, for example, and then here on the side, either adjust the pixel sizes, or the position. We are going to design for the landscape format. If you click on V, you have this little like holder here. You can grab something and also delete that. The cool thing with the artboards is that you can create as many as you want. If you have that selected, click on the little sign here. Click on Option. You can copy the artboard, so you can just create another artboard. And so we are having our artboard now. So what's a really great way to get started? I think on the side you have all the little forms and options here. So you can like click on this little rectangle here, and you can draw a rectangle and change the color here, for example, to red or whatever kind of color you need. This is not so different actually than you probably know from Illustrator. So you can choose a really nice color, or if you already have a code, you can write it down here, or also use this little thing here. You can add this here to your color palette. Then you have all the things you probably know from Illustrator. You have like the border, do specific things with that. Nothing like completely special. You can add a shadow. You have like a background blur, something I think is really nice. We're going to use that on day 2 for the design part. And yep, we have other forms here, right? Like the circle. And have all the options and things you can do on like the other platforms as well. For example, right, like the add or divide, etc., etc. So nothing fancy, very, very similar. So you can just like do all the graphic design work there as well. And I think it's structured like super well and super easy to understand, because here you have like all the forms, all the things you can add to an artboard, to a library. And we're just going to draw something. And here on that side, you have all the adjustments you can make to really like adjust the design, the colors, the sizes, and those kind of things. Here, for example, we have the little rectangle, and we can just change this to 9, for example, and have a completely other shape. Like you can see, you can even adjust the round corners. Like we have a lot of adjustments. So just play a little bit with that and try different things out is my recommendation. Here are a few other tools which you probably already know. First, you have the pen tool, right, which works like very similar than Illustrator. You can draw your own little shapes here. Perfect for icons, for example. Select that and double click, and then adjust the different points you just designed here. Click on that and delete and remove that from the artboard. You have the text here. This is the little artboard handle. So if you click on that, you have the artboard thing again, but you can also click on R. Here's the zoom, a little zoom option. I'm always zooming actually with 2 fingers in and out. I think that's much easier, but if you have other settings, then you can use this little thing here. So what else is important? There's actually one thing which is good to know, which are those little 3 buttons here. First, you have the little plugins here. Sadly, my plugins are all gone because I switched to English, so I removed them. But tomorrow, I will show you a few plugins which I can recommend, which I'm using on a more or less daily basis. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Here are all the layers. So it looks similar than Illustrator, for example. We created this little polygon here, so you can see that here on the artboard. We call that iPad Pro 11-inch, but we could also call that like home screen, for example. And then it changes here. Double click on that and you see what's on that artboard. At the top, you are seeing the assets and the styles, and here it gets really interesting because this really helps you in your design process. Although we spend a lot of time before we're getting started with like research and concepts and, you know, all the brain work, we came up, I think I'm saying like we as digital designers, right? Came up with some really cool things which help you so much in your workflow. Because what you can do is everything you design, you're able to recycle that on different screens. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, but like it's super easy. Designing some kind of a library which you can reuse and recycle. And what you can also do is you can link specific assets, so you can use libraries from other people, for example, and from your team, for example. I'm going to show you how that works tomorrow.
Great.
Okay, so yeah.
There is a question from Stephanie who asks, when you have designed it all, can it be exported in a way that allows you to use the artwork? Or is it purely a layout and then needs to be done again in Photoshop and Illustrator?
So, so what we are doing here in Adobe XD is mostly designed for digital products, right? So could be an app, could be a website. So you don't really have a need to move that to Illustrator or Photoshop. You're already done with the design here. You don't really need to transfer that to another platform. What you can do is, for example, we're going to do that tomorrow as well, but if you have a screen like this, right? I built actually like the little illustration here myself. But if you have some kind of design element, for example, this one on the screen here, and you want to edit that in Photoshop, you can do that. But you're only going to edit this specific part. And this is the fascinating thing here. You don't need to move that to another platform. You can do that for sure, because it's all like smart objects. You can use the libraries as well, right? Here you have the libraries, so you can save all the stuff in your library and then open that in Illustrator, etc., etc. But you don't need to. Everything is in one tool, and there's nothing, I guess, any features you're probably missing from Illustrator. But what you can always do is create specific things in Illustrator and move them to Adobe XD. So what I'm going to do, or what we all can do tomorrow is, of course, I'm going to show you something real quick. Because another really cool thing with Adobe XD is that it saves you a lot of time with all the digital design programs. If you go on File in Adobe XD, get UI kits, and then you see all the options here. And the one we are going to use tomorrow is wireframes. So someone already designed all the options for us, all the design options for us. So we are not going to design all the different buttons for our wireframes. We haven't started with the design. But we're going to download that here and use that for our wireframe. So for our design, for our app design. So feel free to download that. I can highly recommend that. I think it's like really beautiful made, and I'm always using that for my client project. So it's working pretty well.
And how did you find that? Sorry, Patricia. Was it in plugins in your menu?
Yeah, it's in. If you're in this here in the very top, go to File, get UI kits, and then you have different options here, like the Apple iOS kit, for example. We're going to look in that tomorrow. The material design, from Google, Microsoft Windows, and also the wireframes. And if you click on that, you're going to come here. And you can download that for free and use that. Yes. So, and it will look
well,
like...
we're nearly out of time. I think we've got a couple of minutes left.
Okay. So
yes.
one thing is, if you want, feel free to design a mood board for tomorrow. We already have figured out like the challenge, the brief, the features, all those kind of things. But tomorrow will be mostly about, it's still in German, but will be mostly about design. So we are going to start with a mood board. Mood board is a look and feel, which colors you want to choose, what kind of forms, how should it like feel, how, I guess all the people who are coming from the graphic design background will know that. So feel free to design your own mood board here. Look for images, look for illustrations, look for colors, look for patterns, all the things which really fit perfectly to the theme. Put this here, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Fab. Thank you, Patricia. And Tim has put a link in the chat for everybody to access the art boards. So really looking forward to part 2 tomorrow, Patricia. It's been really good today. Can't wait to get into the design. This is really interesting. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the chat today. And we will see you tomorrow, same time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.